Hey everybody, welcome to Springtime. My name's Larry Jacobs. It's March 21st. Okay. Welcome to Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio. And springtime here in Maine, but we have 5 to 8 inches of snow coming on Saturday, so says the weather report. So spring is really kind of relative, okay? But we're going to have to another snow area today. We're going to go over to Denver, thanks to my friends over at Discovery Education. Thank you, Stephen Wakefield. Okay, we have Bernard McCune. Bernard is the Associate Chief of Academics and also the Senior Executive Director for Career and College Success in Denver Public Schools. And we're going to talk today about how Denver Public Schools, all right, and you can use this information, is leveraging the ESSER funding to support student success and also sustaining that success. And again, that's a key thing. All right, we're going to talk about some ESSER funding guides, et cetera, that you can use. And again, you'll hear it from Bernard on how they're using it so that it all works. We're going to archive the show over at ace-ed.org, ace-ed.org. That's the home website of our American Consortium for Equity in Education, something we really believe in. We publish a magazine called Equity and Access that is an online journal. And you can see it at ace-ed.org. Everything we do is free over there for you. All of our podcasts are over there. As I said, we'll archive this one over there as well. And we really put out a lot of good information on this. We try to really focus on equity and access so that every student gets the education and opportunity that they deserve. So please join with us. Again, it's all free over at ace-ed.org. And without further ado, let me bring on Bernard. And Bernard, I'm going to ask you a question. How do you want me to do? I'm Larry. What do you want me to call you? Bernie, Bernard, Mr. McCune, Dr. McCune? Tell me, Bernard.
You know what? Bernard is just fine because that's the name my parents gave me.
Then that is what I shall call you. Bernard, welcome to today's show. Thank you for being
so much.
Here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Are you kidding me? It's my pleasure. And as I always love to do, how's the weather out in Denver? I'm in Maine. How's the weather in Denver today? I imagine it's fairly spring-like, but I don't know.
It is. I think we are, it's supposed to be 58, 60 degrees today and sunny.
Wow. I envy you. Indeed. Did you get a lot of snow this year? Usually you don't. You're high desert. What's the word out there?
Right. So we got more snow in the mountains than normal. And we might have gotten more snow than normal, but I'm originally from Chicago, so we don't get near the snow that, a place like Chicago gets. So.
You are absolutely right. I lived in Chicago. My kids were born there for 13 years. Where'd you live?
I grew up on the near north side, and by the time I left, I lived in Beverly. So I literally lived on the north side of the city and far south as well.
There you go. And we lived on the far north side of the city, up at 6700 North by Loyola. So there you go, not too far apart.
Okay. Rogers Park, a good friend of mine.
Exactly.
Was the alderman up there?
Who was it?
Moore.
I don't know him, but we loved our alderman when I was there. Dave, I can't remember his last name. I was hoping you were going to say it. And just a great guy. That's cool. That's really fun. All right. Yeah, Rogers Park is a pretty good part of the world, I got to tell you. Okay. And again, I want to thank, and I'm sure you work with Discovery. Discovery's created an ESSER funding guide, all right, to help school leaders. And that's why we're here today to talk about what you guys are doing in Denver. And I think it's great and it's fun to talk to a fellow Chicagoan. All right, it really is. Talk to me about your position over there, Bernard, Associate Chief of Academics and Senior Executive Director for Career and College Success. I think that's great. Okay, go ahead. So just tell what you do all day. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are roles that I held here in Denver Public Schools, and my focus now is really as the Executive Director of Extended Learning, Academics, and Athletics that looks at how we how we make sure that we align our in-school and out-of-school offerings and supports for students that lead to success. And so we understand as a school district that we want to make the most out of all the time that we have with our students, which is in-school time and out-of-school time. And ESSER has allowed us to jumpstart a lot of that and to think about it in some different ways.
Well, when you say out-of-school time, are you talking about athletic teams, or what does that mean? Define that one.
Well, so after school, Saturdays, there are just a lot of times that as a school district or when we work with partners, this time, not during the traditional school day, that students have access and opportunity to things that can help them be successful in their lives. And that's what, as educators in schools, what we want is to make sure that students have great life outcomes. Absolutely.
24/7 learning. You're not going to learn everything in school. You can take advantage of great stuff outside. I just wanted to find out what that definition was. That's absolutely excellent. All right. And so, wow. I think, I want to ask you, and I don't know this, what's the demographics of Denver public schools these days?
Well, so we have about 90,000 students.
Wow.
And of those students, about 63% of them are free and reduced lunch. And, about 12.5% are students with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
We have about a third, or maybe say 36% of our students are English language learners.
Wow. How diverse. How interesting. Wow. How many languages are spoken in the schools, do you know?
Well, there are...
got to be tons.
Yeah, there are tons. And so our top, say, 10 languages are Spanish, Arabic, Vietnamese,
Wow.
Somali, French, Nepali, Chinese Mandarin, Russian, and Russian. Yeah.
Wow. And what percentage of the district is Latino versus African American versus Caucasian? Do you know?
I do roughly our demographics. There are about 60% or so of our students are Latino. About 18 or almost 20% are African American, and almost 20% are Caucasian.
Wow, good diverse district. That's why I always loved that city. Okay, that's really cool. It's interesting. Latino population must have picked up over the last few years. Okay, it wasn't always 65% or so Latino in Denver.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think I was having this discussion with a colleague who's actually in Minnesota about the fact that sometimes the demographics in our schools located in cities all the time mirror the demographics of the city as a whole.
Yeah, well put. Absolutely right. It's really interesting, and the change, and all school districts go through these changes demographically, and that includes smaller school districts, rural school districts. Things are changing out there. Okay, we have to make sure that we're teaching every kid, and it's hard to do because it falls on the teachers to do that. Of course, the administrators, but the teachers on a daily basis. Okay, and kids come in from different cultural backgrounds, language difficulties, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, as the old line is, "It ain't your daddy's Oldsmobile anymore." Okay, things have changed, and when the school district really steps up and does well with it and really cares. And what you said at the beginning, your job, it's not just what happens in school, because you're dealing with a lot of different cultures. It's what happens out of school too. Okay? And if you can coordinate that, which is your job, I think that's a great job. That makes all the difference in the world. It just works. It's just going to work.
Yeah, and so I've been in education for a number of years, a few decades, but I have a daughter who is a fifth grade teacher, and so she's a second-year teacher, and so just gives me a great insight, as well as all the interacting I do with other teachers and leaders around the opportunity and challenges that we face today, as opposed to when I was in school or when I first started my career in education.
Yeah, and actually, we're going to get into the ESSER funding in a second, but I just have to ask you this. It's such a great insight. You were trained to be a teacher, I'll say 25 years ago. I'm approximating there, Bernard. Okay? And your daughter was trained much more recently. Okay? And when you talked to her, okay, about the way she was trained to be an educator in today's schools versus the way you were trained to be an educator, and me many, many years before that, okay, what was the difference? Was there a difference in the way she was trained as opposed to the way you were trained? I don't know if you actually talked about that, but I'm just curious.
Well, I think there's some obvious things like the better use of technology, and I think and recently we have a healthy respect and knowledge for how SEL needs to be addressed and impact student learning. And so I think some, those are some of the differences. But, at the end of the day, you have to love students and have high expectations for them, and you have to believe in them sometimes even before they believe in themselves, because once they do believe in themselves, they can do anything. So that part hasn't changed.
Yeah, that is so well put, I have to tell you, and I hope your daughter was trained to believe in those kids that she teaches. Is she in Denver, by the way? Actually, is she in Denver?
She is.
Denver. Good for you. That's great. Okay, I wish her the best, and you're the best on that. Let's talk about the ESSER funds. How are the Denver public schools? When you look at the ESSER funding, how are they using it to support what you do, student success, etc.? How's it all working out? ESSER.
Yeah, so ESSER for us is something we knew it was coming, and so we did a lot of planning with and had focus groups. Actually, a little bit more than focus groups, but we did a 6-week planning session that included teachers and input from students and principals, and then community around what are some of the things that they thought we needed to propel student success. What were some of the things that were missing that we would like to do, and then we went about charting and plotting out those things to see where we could, fill some gaps. And ESSER for us has been an opportunity to get that collective thought process, to implement some things, and then, things that were research-based to figure out if we could have the success that we hope to have. So
I have to ask again, because you just described some of those disparate groups, all concerned about education, but different groups. They have different eyes, different points of view. Okay, and I don't know if you remember or can just think of it on the top of your head, but when you asked the kids what they wanted to do with the funds, was that the same thing that the teachers wanted to do with the funds? The same thing that the adults wanted to do with the funds? What were the different answers? If you just think of those, that's right. I have a smile on my face as I ask that question.
Yeah, and so there was a wide array of answers, but when you would boil them down to that least common denominator, students and educators really wanted some things that were engaging. They both talked about, to a sense, I think, academic freedom. They also talked about things that were relevant to them and led to success. And so it was a good and interesting way to do it. I think when we talk about those different stakeholders, they actually have the same goal when you talk about student success. I think that each of them, and unfortunately we do a lot of this in education too, has buzzwords and a certain vernacular that we might use where one group, we're saying the same things, but we're using a different vernacular language. So we actually don't get it. And so part of it is translating all that information into a cup people can drink out of that actually leads to the student success.
Right, we're all talking the same thing. We're just saying it differently. Okay, and what in the end result? Okay, when you looked at it, what? I'll just ask the simple question: what did you decide leads to student success?
Well, a number of things. So one is trying to make, if students are engaged and have a quest for learning,
agreed,
they'll be successful. And so one of the things is I truly believe if you ask people what they want and need, they'll actually tell you. And so it's just listening. So some of the stuff that we've used ESSER for is to make sure that we had things like summer camps or summer programming that had exponential learning in it, that had what we funded a program called Summer Connections for elementary students that had a focus on literacy and math, but also science, and there was a part of it that was called Genius Time, where students got to pick and do robotics and a number of other things. We've also funded like NASA science camps for students. We have done things like tutoring, high-impact tutoring.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring that up.
Yeah, for students to mitigate some of the impact of the pandemic, but also not for remediation, but acceleration. And so make sure that students have and are able to have grade level texts and tasks and get to that material so that all the opportunities that, a district or a city has, that they can actually partake in them. We've also used ESSER funding to, help kids with college exploration and some of those things and supports around that. Also an investment in SEL. And when you talk about student success, we made sure that we're able to retain staff and have the consistency that
That's key.
students need.
That's key.
So just a number of different things, because when we talk to our stakeholders, there were a number of just needs and things that they brought up. And so ESSER is just a tremendous and unique opportunity for us and other districts to, explore some things that they might not have thought of, and actually implement some of the things that we learned through, a pandemic, something that only happens every 100 years or so.
We hope. Yeah, I'll take it every 1,000 years. As a matter of fact, it was pretty. Yeah. It was pretty gruesome, pretty brutal. Especially, I have to say, on the populations that dominate your school district, Latino folks and African American folks, and that people forget. Most people lived through it, but those groups lost a lot of people. There was a lot of hurt. Okay, just it's a lot to come out of. It's not just the closing of schools; it's the losing of friends and relatives and people you know. And it really makes it. It's really hurtful. It was really hurtful. I got to tell you, and that's why the SEL. Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah. Yeah,
very, very impactful. I lost my father during the pandemic.
I'm sorry.
To COVID, and so there was the impact of the loss of family members, but also the loss of livelihood for a lot of families and students. So as a district and a country, I think we understand better now the social emotional supports that are needed for students, but also staff.
I was just going to bring that up. Staff as well. Okay, go ahead. Continue your thought if you want.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, because I love the people. So I love and being able to support students to be successful and to be whatever their dreams are. And I love the people who love them. And
nice.
A lot of those people we call teachers. And so you can't.
Yes, we do.
Yes,
we do.
You can't, be a blessing, a support to others unless you're a blessing to yourself. So we have to make sure that all our educators and our staff that are in schools and school districts are in the best possible place for themselves when you talk about those social emotional supports, because they are not only in the most needed profession, in my estimation, but also the one where they have to give the most. So it's a selfless profession if you do it right. And so you have to, think about and pour into others. But you got to be in a great space to do that. So we looked at SEL supports for students, families, and staff as well.
Yeah, it's just so important. And, as you list all those things, all right, summer learning, SEL, all those kind of things, as you look at it, Bernard, how, just in your opinion, and the anecdotal opinion to me is extremely important. Of course, we also have data, but how are things working out? Okay, A, so far, and B, can we sustain it for the future?
Yeah, so that summer program I talked about, Summer Connections, we have data on it because it ran last year, and we are running it again this year.
Good.
That says students who actually were a part of Summer Connections did not experience any of the summer slide that is typical for students across the country. And so, those things have worked. And when it comes to sustainability, I think one of the most wonderful things about working in a school district is, our funding comes year to year and is approved year to year because it flows from the federal government to the states and then the district. So because of that, we have an opportunity every year to go through budget prioritization and to look at the things that are most impactful for students and for schools and to fund them. And so that means even when ESSER dollars go away, we have to do a serious review, and districts to do this every year around a reflection and an evaluation around what is most impactful for students and then fund those things. And so that might mean some of these things that we did fund with ESSER will continue, and we have to make the tough but right decisions of what we fund and what we don't fund. We have to fund the things that are most impactful for student success. That is our obligation. And so the obligation is not to do what we've always done if it's not working. We have to fund and do things that work.
That's right. And the data is really going to matter because, the ESSER funds were a gift, if I may. I mean, they're important, but they're a gift. Okay, but they're not going to last forever. And it gave us all, school districts, give us all the opportunity, all right, to actually measure what we needed, okay? And things have changed since the pandemic. As I said, it's the old line, it ain't your daddy's Oldsmobile anymore, okay? And the fact of the matter is there's shifting priorities out there. All right, and when we can see the result of something like the summer learning, which I think is incredibly important. I just did a podcast last week about this. Okay, I'll send it to you so you can listen to that since you're so involved in it, Bernard. Okay, and it was really interesting. Because this has been going on. We know there's a summer slide. It's been going on for how many years now? Okay, since we were both kids. All right, but the fact of the matter is we just kind of accepted that. And then the pandemic brought it all to the forefront again, and we realized we can't have this anymore. This is absurd. We know something's not working, and yet we don't do it. So, again, it's a shifting of priorities to make things work, okay? And if it works, we got to just make it happen, okay, and stop supporting stuff that wasn't working, all right, because we're going to come down to a choice. It's not, and nobody's giving us another bucket of money, at least for a while. Okay, it's going to be a choice and a budgetary choice, and we got to do what works. And I'll tell you, if we do that, teachers are going to be less frustrated. They're going to be much happier in their job. Kids love to learn. Okay, the more rigorous we are with kids, the more happier they are. Okay, so the fact that we can keep that going in this summertime, okay, whenever summer hits at the different school districts, that those long breaks, it's going to work. I mean, it's just that simple. You just went through this, and we're talking to a lot of school districts today on the podcast. What's your best advice? Would your best advice be to just sit down with all the stakeholders and measure it out and see what happens? I mean, what did you learn from all this?
Yeah, so I learned from when you talk about ESSER or just public education that, again, there are a lot of stakeholders who all have the same goal. And so if we can get together and get in a room or rooms and actually talk to each other to understand instead of respond. So that there are a lot of great things that we can come up with together. And so my advice for school districts or anybody would be to engage all of the bright, passionate people around education. And again, if you ask students, if you ask parents, if you ask communities what they want and need, they'll actually tell you. And so we can't assume and make decisions for people without their input, because it's just not right and fair, and it doesn't respect their knowledge, their experience, and self-efficacy.
Here, here, my friend. Boy, this was great. Bernard, thank you for being with us today. I appreciate your insights. I really do, my friend.
Thank you for the opportunity. And,
are you kidding?
I look forward to listening. So
I'm going to send you that
you.
podcast from last week. I'll send you this one as well, but I'm going to send you the podcast from last week so you can listen to that. It's all about, and it's up. I just don't remember the date, but I'll get it. Or I'll put it up on here. Okay, but it's really it was last week sometime. All right, it's just interesting how we can make things better, and you're doing that in Denver. And I wish you the best of luck. Thanks, Bernard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay, Bernard McCune. Bernard, good guy. Denver Public Schools. And I had a different title, but he's really involved with this out-of-school stuff. It's really, really excellent. Okay, he's executive director. I didn't write it down, but he was the associate chief of academics and senior executive director for career and college success. Now he's taking that to the out-of-school time and directing that with all the partners who are involved, okay, in keeping kids learning as much as we can, okay? There's no reason why not. All right? It helps everybody. All right, and please go over. I have it linked here on site, Discovery Education. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, has created a special ESSER funding guide to help school leaders make decisions about how to use this great funding, and it's linked up here. All right, as you're looking at your screen. All right, that's that link. Okay, we'll archive over at ace-ed.org. I'm Larry Jacobs. Thanks for listening.